Testing, testing. We'll call to order the city council meeting for Monday, February 19th, 2024. Please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, man.
Jeff Delkey.
Here.
Tracy Coach.
Here.
Bill Leclerc.
Here.
Darla Leclerc.
Here.
Tim Petrie.
Here.
Bonnie Shimalunas. Here. Scott Steckmesser.
Here.
Adam Ohusky.
Here. That means we can skip over number 4. Everyone is here and present. It looks like there must have been a placeholder for number 5 of a public hearing because I don't recall one being. Is that correct? Okay. Brings us to number 6, input from the public. Anyone wishing to address the council on something that's on this agenda or something they'd like to see on a future agenda, please step up to the podium. My right, your left. State your name and address for the record. Input from the public. Sure. Yep. Absolutely. Yep. Go ahead. Yep.
Hi, I'm Mark Gordon. Address, you want 2? I have 2, so we'll just do 3708 Bellevue Place. What else did you need from me?
That's it.
That's good. Thank you. How you guys doing today, ladies, too? Doing all right? Good to hear. I'm bringing up the issue of the sign ordinance change they want to do on the stickers, I believe it is, way back, quite far back, I think. If I can find it. Nope. Well, either way, I'm going to go off of the plan and zoning meeting one. I do not have the minutes on it. I looked on the website. The minutes weren't done yet. So I don't really know what was discussed other than the agenda that they put up. So they said that the ordinance currently provides several options for business advertisements in the form of sign placement that are both permanent and temporary opportunities. I believe we talked about this once before to city council. It's the stickers we have in front of Weichert Realtors Cornerstone. And I believe Mr. Van Kinkel's building had one as well. It was suggested to do a pilot program, I believe, for a year. And then it got kicked back to the planning and zoning, and I believe they said they didn't want any change done. But if one was to be done, they gave a few requirements they'd like to see. So I'm just going to read through the requirements because I don't know if you have them or not.
They most certainly do.
They do,
Yes.
thank you. So the first one says
Those
one
minutes
sign.
are on the website too, I'm pretty sure, Mark.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
One sign permitted per establishment on a sidewalk that is along the frontage of their property. I don't have a problem with that, but the one thing I do have a question on, what do you have for ordinances on businesses that have multiple businesses in one building? Prime example, Schrader's has Red Bank.
If I can
UPS.
stop you right there just for a quick second, because I can answer
Sure,
that.
perfect.
I believe within the ordinance, it was 1 per business. So those that have multiple businesses or tenants in that same building could have 1 per. So if Schrader's has 5 different businesses, each business can have 1.
Perfect. So will that be also the same for real estate?
Well, it would be 1 for Weichert. And you are on a corner, so as proposed, you could have 1 on each frontage, as could the other person who shares the building with you.
So where I have a disagreement with that is, our business actually has multiple businesses inside our business. So Weichert represents, I think we have 10 agents currently, which we all fill out a 1099. So we'd like to have more than 1. I understand we don't need 10. So that's one thing I think we should address. The next one, if I can go forward, the sign is to be advertising a business placed directly in front of the sidewalk. I think that's fair. That makes sense to me. The material the sign will be made of is to be approved. I do have samples of this. I did share it with the staff with plan and zoning. I don't know if everybody got one, but I think I have enough to share them. Is that okay that I give them to you guys?
Sure.
And if I'm taking too long.
I can grab them for you and you can just keep talking. I can
Oh,
pass
thank
them
you.
out.
I was gonna say, if I'm taking too long, which happens a lot, feel free to shut me down. The materials already, it's a material that's a national material you can use. It's actually underneath American National Standards Institute rating for slipping as well, so it's something they already do. And it kind of explains it on there. We got the material from Lucky Signs and Graphics in Michigan. He does it quite often, so it can go on carpet, cement, just about anything really. So abrasive, non-slippery, it's already rated for that. And it has a current ANSI rating, which I don't know what to compare that to. I can't really compare it to cement, but I could probably compare it to an epoxy coating, which I don't know what that ANSI rating is. The sign owner shall agree to a liability policy agreement. I think that's fair. We don't want to be sued. No one does. The evaluation of the condition of the sign, like other signs, I think that's a great idea too, because I noticed mine was out there almost a whole year. Other agents put theirs down. Mine took quite a beating for a whole year. So I was like, oh wow, mine looks terrible compared to hers. So I reapplied it. I reapplied a new one. These signs will be limited to the B1 and B2 district. I have no problem with that. So other than them are the only things that I know of that they were asking really to have regulated on it, correct?
There might have been a couple other things. I'd have to go back to the minutes. I don't know them off the top of my head.
And I didn't have the minutes.
They are in detail in the minutes, which, yeah, actually as of Friday, we're on for this council agenda. You just have to click on the little.
I didn't see the minutes of what was discussed. I seen the agenda.
Yep. Within the agenda, there's an agenda packet and you can click on any highlighted agenda item. That means there's an attachment.
There's more in there.
Yep.
Oh, thank you.
There's more depth to it.
Thank you.
It looks like that's pretty much everything that you highlighted.
Okay. I'm still pushing for a pilot program because I do agree. If the public says, hey, we don't like this, I'm okay with agreeing with the public. So I think that's about all I got. Has anybody got any questions?
If I could just offer a comment this is back to council tonight with those recommendations from the Plan Commission. And as I pointed out on the staff recommendation for the agenda, the council could either say, yeah, we like or don't like whichever points. City attorney prepare an ordinance because the Plan Commission has met its statutory responsibility to advise the council. You could ship it back to council to Plan Commission with some direction to actually bring a formal ordinance amendment forward. Council may also tonight want to consider tabling it, and I know Darla can speak to this when we get to that point in the agenda. The Main Street Board last week, Wednesday, when they met, thought it would be a good idea, and this isn't exclusive to the Main Street District. I know it's, all B1 and B2 as proposed, but asked Jason Ring if he could do a survey of the bid district, at least the Main Street constituency, to get some more feedback on it. So if there's a desire for more dialogue, there's a way to do that. But might be a good idea for the interested public to be able to see the full minutes of the Plan Commission, if that's what council acts on tonight.
Yeah, that'd be awesome, man.
Yeah.
I think it's a great idea.
We still got a little ways till spring, so, and we're not making anyone rip up their decal signs in the meantime, so.
Okay. More questions we got? Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else input from the public? All right, see none, we're gonna move on to number 7, which is council communications. Anyone have letters or other communications from citizens that they would like to let the rest of the council know about? Jeff?
Yeah, I have a few. Had several calls on the sidewalk signage. I think I had 6 calls. One of them was against the other. Didn't matter to anybody. They thought it was just fine. Another couple calls and a conversation with somebody asking about the Unimart, and I thought that was gonna be up on the next work session.
Next work session. Yep.
Okay.
Yep, we'll talk tonight about whether that's Monday or whether it can be rescheduled till later the week of the 26th, next week. It will be on the agenda.
Okay, so that was another one of them, so I directed that, so I was right on that one. The battery storage facility, there was a couple questions on that, mostly with like water runoff and watershed and how that's gonna be handled. I said that was going to Plan Commission, right?
Well, part of their design also included, I don't know if it was necessarily labeled a retention pond, but there was runoff. Was it a retention pond or was it somewhat what they're doing with like LB Clark? Retention pond, yes? Stormwater, yep. But is it a retention pond or is it gonna be more like LB Clark's? To be determined. Okay, so that runoff should be captured within that.
And then the final one was I had a couple of conversations about people still worried about the Airbnbs and if we can possibly, even if it's had to be a work session item, to talk about how we can kind of control the numbers of them coming in.
Would that start at Plan Commission?
It's up to the council.
Okay. Airbnbs
Airbnbs.
getting out of control, too
Oh.
many.
I thought you were talking about babies.
Babies.
We don't want them in here. I don't know. It didn't make sense.
That would be a hard ordinance to draft.
Yeah, we're not gonna draft that.
Because I know they're kind of two separate categories.
Yeah, well, yeah, but actually, if they're rented for more than 7 days, the state has precluded us from regulating them differently than any other other residential rentals. You know, in light of what I just said, I do know that we have at least one citizen who I think has been in touch with a number of you who wants to address at Plan Commission at the March meeting some concerns about short-term rentals or Airbnbs. So I guess my suggestion would be maybe that I'm kind of reeling back what I said earlier, but maybe you want to see what if anything is forthcoming out of that Plan Commission meeting.
And somebody had mentioned to me too about how Madison handles there, that it seems like they got a pretty decent, and I haven't done any research on it, but that's one I'm going to look into too. And that's all I
And I know several Door County communities have been referenced too in our discussions.
Right.
Again, there are of record less than 45 registered short-term rentals in the city. So I don't know if any are flying under the radar, probably. I don't know what people consider a big number, but and correct me if I'm wrong, Elizabeth, Ford, it was in the low 40s the last we heard or saw. So.
Okay, so we'll talk about that at Plan Commission in March, and then we can bring it back to maybe a work session to dive any deeper and relay that information back to the rest of council. And if something needs to be done, we can talk about it there. Okay, fair? Okay,
I'll pass that on.
okay. Anybody else? Scott?
I have two. One of them was a couple weeks ago, someone was wondering why someone from the city was digging in front of a fire hydrant, sticking a long pole down that said hole, taking it back out and then filling it back up. I had no idea. So thanks to our public works director and our water guy, which I don't see him here, found out that it's actually a DNR thing to, oh, there he is. Thank you. That it's actually a thing where it's required by the DNR to turn them off and on to make sure they work. So basically it's turning the fire hydrant off and back on. I was like, okay. So I saw now that I walk around the neighborhood, I see different areas where they've been digging up. So thank you for that. And then the other one, someone called me this morning, didn't leave a name or number, but left me a voicemail. It was asking about city council candidates and who pays for signs. If it's okay to have, since it's a nonpartisan seat we sit in, if it's okay to have different groups pay for the signs or pamphlets or whatever. So thanks to Amanda, she got back to me right away. And yeah, it's okay if whoever pays for it, as long as they register it with Amanda and the Wisconsin
Ethics Commission
Ethics Commission.
on their campaign finance report.
Thank you. I know the gentleman's listening tonight, so hopefully that answers your question. And that's it.
Okay, Tracy?
I've also had communication about Airbnbs, short-term rentals, and various codes that may apply to them, including lighting. So throwing it to Planning Commission is an excellent idea.
Anybody else? All right, I had two. I had someone contact me on the sign ordinance for sidewalk signs that were in favor of such. And also another person who called and, or emailed this time and talked about the pool and worried about its location and the cost of running such. Kind of left it at that. I did give him some more information and kind of told him where we're at as far as the planning process with the pool. That's it. So on to 8, council reports from boards, commissions, and committees. Darla.
Okay, for the Environmental Advisory Board, I don't have a lot to report. We are starting to look at topics for next, or for later this coming winter for our educational series. So if anybody has any suggestions, just get in touch with Public Works Engineering and they'll pass it on to Environmental Advisory Board. I have no updates on Jacques and Sirtwell's bills that they proposed for the Wisconsin Vegetable Garden Protection Act, even though I know that those are, they are going forward. I'm not sure exactly where they all landed, but it looks like it's doing well. If you aren't aware, the TMDL is now out for our stormwater runoff, the safe drinking clean water. So we're working around that to come up with a plan. So we'll keep you posted. We want to get back to some green infrastructure initiatives, one of which is, and I've been talking to Greg and Mike Mathis about this, having on the west wall of the senior center to have like vertical planting so people in the community can see what we're talking about. Because you could do vertical planting and then have it branch off horizontally so it doesn't become a large type of thing. So we're talking about being able to put something like that in. Also, Chief Murak from the fire department has been nice enough to offer his vegetable garden area that the guys have been using over there and eating the produce. And what we're thinking about doing is doing dwarf varieties of different plants so that, let's say you want to do something that typically would be over the 3-foot limit. If there's dwarf varieties available, we could check them out. And then maybe that is something that people can consider for their front yard vegetable gardens. And that's pretty much it for where we're at right now. Now, design committee, I want to just talk about the fact that Jason Ring from Main Street did send out his weekly email to all the business owners in the bid district with a link to a poll. It's important that we, instead of us just, making a decision, and we're not the business owners, we're just kind of like, I think it boils down to what our preferences are, what we think looks good and what doesn't, and all this. And so we want to hear from the people that this affects. So later on today, or this evening, I am going to suggest that we table it until those results come in. And then also, Mr. Gordon, you're still here. I did have this, but I found some more ANSI ratings. With the decal material, there's so many different kinds of vinyl to go on all different types of applications for different surfaces. And within those, there are ratings, the best, a moderate and cheapest. And with the ANSI rating for the outdoor, it's pretty darn good. And one of the things that I was talking to Craig over at Lucky Signs, and he said a very good example is when you're watching the NBA, what they're playing on is decals. That's what they're running over. And so I never had thought about that. So when it comes to slippage, we'll talk about it later. From what I've understood, it's not really an issue. So, but anyway, so the poll is out. We'll see what the results are. And our arts and beautification budget, we had put out 4 applications for grants. And as of today, it looks like we might be doing pretty darn good on 2 of them. And if that's the case, then we can really get our public art program going. Our intention is to perhaps later on, when this becomes established, to turn it into an arts commission that would be run by residents. But that's down the road. We are gonna have Yarn Bomb again this year. If you want to get an application, talk to Jason over at Main Street. The banner art, we are accepting artwork right now. And in fact, if you are interested in doing this, you can pick up a 12 by 24 inch canvas over at Main Street. So you can do your art on there, and then basically what happens, it gets scanned, and then the banners get printed. Hanging baskets are on track. And we're also working on expanding the Light Up the Downtown Holiday Parade experience. And we came up with some really awesome ideas as to how to even make our downtown look better. It was really good this season, but there's ways that we could really bump it up. And if anybody's interested in coming to the design committee, we meet on Thursday, March 21st at 9 a.m. And that's where a lot of the events and the art and all that, that's where that all takes place. So you're more than welcome.
Great, thank you. Anybody else? Tracy?
It's me. Yes, library board last week. March is almost here, and I know Greg has a little bit of it in his report, but World on the Move will be arriving soon and be set up in there. It's from the American Anthropological Association, the American Library Association, and the Smithsonian. Are putting this around to various libraries, 15 of them. We're one of them. But they're having speakers as well. And let's see here. You'll need a ticket because there's limited seating for the speaker programs. But the tickets are free. You have to go in and either call in or show up and get your ticket. Let's see, there's a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 speakers. There's also going to be some toe tapping music on the Wednesday, April 10th. And if you go to the Leicester Library's webpage, you can bring it up and see all that's included. But starting March 1st is when you can get your tickets.
Right around the corner.
Yep, I have it marked in my date book.
And you do that via the website.
And, well, you can get information on the programs on the website. You're still gonna have to call or go in.
Okay, so in person to get the tickets at the library.
Yes.
But information is on the library's website.
Oh, and they have these around town too. So I just dropped some off at the bookstore. I know the senior center, I think, has some. So all around town, you'll be seeing these, it's including some of the restaurants and stuff as well. Folks are going to be coming in to see this from not here. And so we're putting them everywhere.
Right, anybody else? Jeff?
Last Thursday, we had personnel and finance meeting, and everything that we covered in that meeting, we will be covering tonight under the Baird presentation.
Okay. All right, anybody else? Advisory Rec Board met last week. Big agenda. We had a nice presentation from Blue Zones, who she talked a lot about a healthy environment and how to achieve that and how to live in our environment and do things to help us live longer and healthier. It was quite a good presentation there for Blue Zones. We also had our tourism director, Joe Metzen, who is in the back here today, and talked just briefly about how Parks and Rec and tourism kind of work together hand in hand. Got to see the tourism book as well. Briefly touched on the pool committee. Took a look at capital projects, including a lot of capital equipment, such as their lawnmowers and their digger that they have coming up that they are buying. Also, talked about a possible play piece that will be installed possibly at Washington Park as Mike continues to work through his budget and also redoing those picnic tables. And skate rentals at the ice rink right here downtown. Looks like that's going to go through February. After that, we're looking to kind of put a stoppage to that and possibly even lift up the ice sometime in March should the weather continue to be nice. I know Mike, our rec director, said that the skating was really big during the peak season of it. So your November, December, and a little bit into January, and has kind of tapered off a little bit. People still using it, just not as much as they were possibly using it earlier on. So we're kind of finding what our skate season is, and I think the department will look at how to do rentals next year based on those timeframes to better adequate people that want to use the rink. But overall, it seemed to be a fairly good success. There was a lot of rentals. I don't remember the exact total, but there were quite a few skate rentals that happened out there. So all I got there, Greg Buckley, city manager's report.
And that rink never turned to liquid the whole time.
No, we were able to use it all year
Part
long.
of the whole thing.
Yep.
To start off the city manager's report tonight, we do have an invited guest, familiar face for most on the council, Justin Fisher from Beard Public Finance. Just by way of introduction, as is always the case, the city's 2024 budget includes a number of capital projects, both infrastructure and major pieces of equipment and vehicles that are funded through debt, typically 10-year debt. We do some shorter stuff, but that's usually with internal financings. And we're now getting ready to go to market, and Justin can provide a bit of an update on market conditions and an introduction to the parameters resolution that we're asking council to act on this evening, which I'll ask you to move to following the Baird presentation. So Justin, welcome back.
Thank you, Greg, and it's great to see everyone. It's been about a year, so I hope everyone's doing well. So this is really a follow-up to the PNF committee meeting that was held last week. So, as I go through this, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask, but I'm going to keep it fairly brief since we went through most of the details the other night. So if you go to page 2 of the presentation, what you see there is an interest rate graph. And what's really interesting when you look at this page is 2023 was a very volatile year from interest rates. You all heard it every time you turned on the news. You heard, interest rates are going up, they're going up, they're going up. Well, at the end of last year, fortunately, the rate increases kind of tapered off, and then there was discussions of when is the Fed going to potentially have their first rate decrease. That caused the interest rates, when you look at this graph here, to start trending downwards. And now we're kind of at a point in 2024 where it's when are they going to do a rate cut, if they are going to do one. Originally they were talking about March. Well, then some economic data came out that was fairly positive. So that potentially now paused that to now June. And, it keeps getting pushed as new economic data comes out. And if, the economy keeps chugging along the way it has been, it's really going to be dependent on when the Fed makes the first interest rate cut. So we're kind of watching that. But again, a lot of that has been already kind of baked in, which was why you've seen these interest rates drop so much from pretty much November of 2023 to now. So it's been a pretty dramatic rise and then a pretty dramatic drop. So fortunately, we're kind of at the point where rates have come down significantly, and here we are going into the market in the next month or so. And the other thing I want to point out is we do always watch the Board of Commissioners of Public Lands, which is the state trust fund loan program. The city has used that in the past. That current rate is at a 6% interest rate in the market. When we take a look at that rate versus what we can get in the public market, we're going to probably get a much better rate in the public market. So we did that analysis as well. So when you go to page 3 here, again, we met with PNF on February 15th, where it was approved to move forward with the plan of finance here. And then council considers the plan and parameters resolution tonight, which will give authority for Greg and Dave to be the potential signers here, assuming we hit an interest rate below 5%, which again, I'm using an interest rate and these projections at 4%. That hopefully is a little conservative. And when we go to the market, we'll find out what kind of rate we receive then, but I feel pretty good about it. So we've been starting the process of the official statement and marketing and so forth. So again, the official statement is the document that basically contains all the financial information that a potential buyer of the debt would want to take a look at. You know, what are your evaluations, who are the largest employers, that type of stuff is all put in this document and then sent out for review. So then, assuming all goes well and interest rates continue to look favorable, and at some point in March, we will look to jump into the marketplace and then close April 1st of 2024. So that's when you'll receive the funds to start paying invoices on projects. So the estimated size here, $3,020,000. It's a general obligation promissory note for 10 years. It's going to fund the 2024 capital improvement projects that were approved in the budget. So kind of broken out in different funding sources, where you have some levy supported, that's going to be your city paid type financing, and then you have some different TID related infrastructure type related projects, and then solid waste and storm. So that's kind of the breakout of how you get to the $3,020,000.
I could just offer a little editorial comment, and I know Personnel and Finance talked about this last week. We've typically strived to keep the tax-supported new debt at or below 2 million new, and that, with a little tweaking, pretty much allows us to keep flat debt service levy, and that'll show in a future slide. There are, and you maybe you were going to touch on this, Justin. There are a couple of potential borrowings where we anticipate we'd either, if they both happened at once, we might be able to go to the market for a taxable issue, higher rate, or go to the state trust fund, and those would be the potential TIF-related borrowings for the seawall improvements and public walkway over by the West River Lofts project, because that would be primarily going to improve the shoreline on a privately owned piece of property. Discussions with bond counsel, that probably fits better in the taxable category of borrowing because it's not public purpose in a true sense. The walkway up top is, but that's not nearly as expensive as the shoreline work. And the other one, and we'll be hearing later tonight from Mr. Golden on the Confluence project. If all goes well and that project goes forward, the borrowing for the direct grant to the developer on that TIF would also be a taxable issue, either going to the marketplace or going to the state trust fund. So those are the only two borrowings that were contemplated in the 2024 budget that aren't on this summary tonight.
Correct.
Thanks for letting me interrupt there, Justin.
And the big difference there is, right, the state trust fund loan, we can pay that off early at any time.
State trust fund offers a lot of advantages that way. Yeah, you don't have to worry about a call feature like on a market issue. And obviously, when the state is investing, they don't really discriminate against taxable versus non-taxable issues, because the state of Wisconsin is lending the money. They don't do a tax return like an investor would.
Because when we go to the market, it's 7 years on 10 years before we could pay that off early, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yep. So a 10-year financing, first payment would be next year, April 1st of 2025. So that allows you to plan for the levy. And then callable, to your point, Adam, April 1st, 2031, or any date thereafter is when the first call feature occurs. So on that particular day, you could take a look at refinancing or prepaying. And if you recall, back in 2021, 2022, around that time frame, is where we took advantage of that drop in interest rates, and we're able to refinance a lot of the city's outstanding debt into that historically low interest rate environment at that particular time. So it's definitely something that we're going to continue to watch, but right now with where interest rates are, it doesn't make sense to refinance any of the outstanding obligations that may have particular call features out there. But as rates hopefully come down, that could present an opportunity.
I looked back at Justin's email to us when Baird went to market in March last year, and that 10-year borrowing came in at 3.78%. So, hopefully 4% with a maximum interest rate in the parameters resolution at 5%. That's higher than last year, but it's not nearly the extreme lift that you've seen in mortgage rates and private sector bank loans. So it's up, but not up nearly as much as for some other lending activities.
So let's jump into page 4 here. And there's a lot of numbers on this page, so I won't go through them all, but I'm just going to kind of summarize what this page signifies. And many of you have already seen this in prior presentations and so forth, but the left side of the page, that's your existing debt payments on an annual basis. So you can see how every year the debt changes. And that's because every year you're paying down outstanding obligations and so forth. What we've done, through thoughtful planning and so forth, is to have a drop in your debt service. You can see in 24, it's 2.6, and then it drops down to 2.4. That's thoughtful process in that we know that you're going to have capital improvement project borrowing. And so we want to be able to kind of fill in with the future financing that you have while paying off the existing obligations and minimizing any type of large tax impact to your taxpayers. So that's something that we constantly take a look at and analyze and so forth. The middle of the page, that's what we're talking about tonight. That's the $3,020,000, and then kind of those different boxes over to the right. That's how it's broken out between the different funding sources, whether it be levy supported or TID supported or so forth. Then we take it a little bit step further, into Greg's point earlier, we model in hypothetical $2 million borrowings every year going forward, just to plan for, if you were to do this, well, how does that debt service impact your overall potentially into the future? And when you look at the far right side of the page, I think this is the nice story here, is that, you're able to fund these projects. Your debt service levy really isn't anticipated to change much at all, year over year. And again, that's using a $2 million. It may, be a little bit more next year. It might be a little less, it fluctuates, but that's what we're trying to do, is just use an average of $2 million going forward for planning purposes. And then page 5, this is a nice story. When we think about a couple of years ago to where we are now, the city's valuation has grown pretty significantly over the last several years. You've also been paying down a lot of your debt. When you look at this, the black bars there, that's your existing debt as it's going down every year as you're paying that down. The red is what we're talking about tonight. So kind of adding on, and then kind of that blue is the future $2 million borrowings every year going forward for hypothetical purposes. The gray is what you will have available for general obligation borrowing capacity year over year, still after accounting for all this potential financing into the future. And what you can see here is that, at any point, you're going to potentially have 57% plus in available borrowing capacity at any point. And your policy is to have a minimum of at least 40%. And it wasn't too long ago when we were very close to right at that 40%. So now you've worked really hard to, with also nice valuation growth increases, but also keeping your debt borrowing at that around $2 to $3 million amount per year, while also paying down a significant amount every year. So I think this is a nice little slide to show you, because I can't show this to every community in Wisconsin. So.
Any questions for Justin on this presentation?
Again, far and away, most of our existing debt is 10-year debt. I think somewhere north of 90% of the outstanding principal is 10-year. So there are those occasions the city's gone to a 20-year, but that's been rare.
Yeah,
And
typically building type projects.
and I would say, as it should be, without exception, it's financing assets that have lives well in excess of 10 years. So. So we would ask if council is so inclined that that you would move to agenda item 11C, which is resolution authorizing the issuance and establishing parameters for the sale of not to exceed $3,020,000 in general obligation promissory notes for 2024 capital projects. Again, that parameters resolution allows myself and/or the finance director to sign off on pricing not to exceed 5%, with a little luck and a tailwind closer to 4%.
All right, we'll look for a motion to
I'll make
waive.
that motion. to
Okay,
Waive reading and adopt the resolution.
I will stop right there. Thank you, Bonnie. Seconded by Bill. Thank you. Any council discussion? All right, roll call vote, Amanda.
Tracy Coach,
Aye.
Bill Leclerc, Darla Leclerc,
Aye.
Tim Petrie, Bonnie Shamunis, Scott Steckmasser, Adam Mahusky,
Aye.
Jeff Delkey.
Aye. All right, motion carries. Thank you very much, Justin. Appreciate it.
Moving on with my report for tonight. Of course, we run on people, the people that provide the service. Recent vacancies filled. We have a new recreation clerk, Taylor Pekorski. There she is in the photo on this slide. We are continuing recruitment for an electric meter technician. Most recent round of applications due as of today, and upcoming, meaning within the next 2 days, the ad will get out there to various locations, including Wisconsin Government Finance Officers Association, the League, and other portals for the finance director position with Mr. Buss's retirement coming up in mid-June. We did discuss briefly at Personnel and Finance the other evening. I requested of the committee at least that their concurrence. I don't know that we need formal action, that I think we've got with existing position vacancies that have saved us some money in the budget, the ability to provide for a 6, maybe 8-week overlap if we're so lucky as to find a well-qualified candidate right away and get them into work with Dave, because Dave Buss has got some big shoes to fill there. And it would be wonderful if we can provide for that sort of an orientation period. And I can say the committee was very supportive of that, especially when we emphasized doing it within existing budgeted resources. So thank you for that. Would like to extend congratulations, as I know some of you have, to Assistant Police Chief Melissa Wiesner on being named the 2023 Woman Police Officer of the Year by the Wisconsin Association of Police Women. And that's not just a tribute to Melissa's accomplishments, I think, but the growing role of women in policing. It was just a couple years back that we had our first full shift with shift commander and all patrol officers being female. And it also speaks, I think, to the emphasis on professional development and within the Two Rivers Police Department. And Melissa's had a fantastic career here and well deserving of the recognition given by her peers in police work around the state. Of course, we do have a council election coming up in April with 5 candidates for the 3 at-large positions. Just a reminder, we've got a couple of upcoming candidate forums that will happen in this room. People can attend in person. They can watch it live streamed on Facebook or, I just went blank there. They can watch it live on Facebook or otherwise. Charter Channel 993. It'll also be recorded and available for viewing on the city's website and on Facebook. So the League of Women Voters Forum is Thursday, March 7 p.m. And then the Two Rivers Business Association is hosting a candidate forum the following Tuesday, March 12, also at 7 p.m. Also, either you can watch here live and in person or on the web or Facebook, both live and after the fact. 5 candidates on the ballot, Doug Brandt, Shannon Derby, Mark Bittner, Andrew Quackenbush, and Jeff Dahlke. So we thank both of those groups for the work of setting up these candidate forums, and hopefully all the candidates will be able to participate. Spring election and presidential preference primary, April 2. And if you need more information, then in addition to our school board, help me out, Amanda, school board election, county board, and
And then I believe there might be a state election on there.
state issue. Okay, very good. Coming right up. Updates on a few things. We've had more complaints in recent years. We're about 20 years past the reconstruction of Washington Street, which included streetscape work, including trees along the street. We are to the point where some of the tree grates are either rising up or sinking down and posing a tripping hazard. Public Works has started taking a serious look at them recently. And in a good number of locations, part of the solution should involve cutting larger openings in the center of each grate. The trunk and the nearby big roots have just grown to the point where the existing opening doesn't accommodate them and they're pushing the grates up. The areas under the grates could also use a good cleaning out because there's quite a buildup of debris over time. But if you're going to make that opening for the tree any bigger, it also means that vertical tree cage has to go because it's anchored into the tree grate just outside of the opening. So this just illustrates, I think these trees are right next to each other. the one on the left by GJ's with the tree cage still intact. The one on the right, just north of Dr. Pachkowski's office. This is one that we had a complaint about some raised up panels. That is with the tree cage removed. Main Street's Design Committee took a preliminary look at these two locations last week. The feedback generally, I think, was that the trees don't look too bad without the cages. When they were little saplings and needed the cage as much for protection as anything else, that vertical element was kind of important. But if it's going to be necessary to remove a large percentage of those vertical cages, it just seems for appearance sake, it would make sense to remove all of them. And quite honestly, if any of them have to be removed, even to move the grates around and clean out the tree wells, they bolt together with two halves. They're rusty. It's going to be a messy endeavor. So they've just about all got to come out. And right now, we're leaning toward keeping them all out. Those trees are big enough. Those trunks don't need a whole lot of protection at this stage. So I think we'll run that past the full Main Street board at their next meeting. They are ultimately the city's responsibility, but just in the interest of being of cooperating with our downtown group. So
Does anyone use those to lock up their bikes? I know I've seen that in the past.
they do. And in fact, shortly after the project, somebody said, you know, we don't have bike racks. We need bike racks. And little decals were then put on each of these. So the thought was it may be necessary, and I think that got discussed at Main Street, to put some bike racks out there. When that discussion was had previously, the thought was to put them like right behind benches in the downtown area, so you're not creating yet another new obstruction to plow snow around or, you know, shovel the sidewalk around. So that's probably a valid point. Darla, did that come up at your design meeting?
Yeah, and we actually looked at some different designs that they have for bike racks, and they're nice. They're small, they're unobtrusive. So I mean that there's several different types that you could choose from. And we were thinking about having a mid-block. So yeah, I could probably share that after our next, board meeting. But they're out there, and it doesn't have to be something that you trip over. So, actually the feedback we kind of already have gotten back from like the businesses and people who are just walking around and giving their opinion, they like it without the cage. It just makes it very, very clean looking. And I agree with you. There was a time and a place for the cages.
Yep.
And now these trees can basically stand on their own and they don't need the protection. And I think it looks great personally.
So you'll see some more activity there. And I know some of you have heard from residents about, the tripping hazard that some of those grates present. So that's being worked on. Just would mention that the Central Park West 365 project has now been recognized with 2 awards. We heard about the Wisconsin Parks and Rec Association Design Award for projects from $1 to $3 million, awarded at their state conference about a month ago. And council members Shimalunas and Dahlke, along with Lisa Kean and Mike Mathis and myself, were all at the Chamber Awards program a couple weeks ago, and the Collaboration Award winner, representing a collaborative community effort out of 11 nominees, Central Park West was again recognized. So we appreciate that, and it's good to see all the hard work that went into that project, supported by almost 400 individual donors, as well as the city and the West Foundation, who helped in a big way get that recognition. So we'll keep it up. Would remind people in the way of upcoming events, there's a whole lot going on. The Price is Right fundraiser for Two Rivers Youth Sports this coming Saturday, February 24, in the Community House Gym. I would ask, I know we have someone quite involved in that. Adam, are there tickets available yet?
There are. We have, I think, roughly maybe 30 tickets left. Most of the tables, I think we only have 1 table left to reserve, but there is general admission seating left yet. So
Going fast, but still
Yep.
some opportunities there. That's 5:30, doors open, show starts at 6:30, tickets are $20. And again, Two Rivers Youth Sports. The same Saturday evening over at Sepia Chapel, Woodland Dunes Nature Center has their annual Tropical Blast fundraiser. I don't know the status of tickets on this one. It's often a sellout. but this coincides with the Nature Center's 50-year anniversary. This is their major fundraising event. Great event over at Sepia. Police Department continues their community outreach and communication efforts through Coffee with a Cop. Wednesday, February 21, 8:30 to 9:30 over at over at Cool City Brewing Company. And then Monday, February 26th, next week, Monday, over at the High Lift from 8:30 to 9:30 also. At the Leicester Public Library, there are 2 programs scheduled to highlight the history and significance of the Wisconsin Shipwreck Coast National Marine Sanctuary. There will be a program from the state archaeologist with the Division of History on NOAA research on Thursday, February 22. That's this week, Thursday. And then the following Thursday, February 29, a program on Lake Michigan history with a guest speaker from the Greg Lutz from the Wisconsin Maritime Museum just down the road. So 2 great programs over at the library regarding the Shipwreck Coast, and of course, Two Rivers plays an awfully big role in that Lake Michigan history. Environmental Advisory Board's most recent session coming up on March 7 over at Leicester Library at 6 p.m. And that is on the topic of stormwater management. Guest speaker, our own city engineer, public works director, Matt Heckenleibel. I know Matt will be talking about the watershed study of the East and West Twin River, the total daily maximum loading, or TMDL, total maximum daily loading for various nutrients in the river. And he'll make it very interesting at the same time. So plan to attend. It's nice and comfortable down by the fireplace for those presentations. Easter's early this year, so that means you better mark your calendar a little earlier for the annual fish boil over at the fire department, sponsored by the fire department and Firefighters Local 423. There'll be more information coming out on advanced purchase of tickets, that sort of thing. That's on Friday, March 29, Good Friday, over at the fire station. And while during COVID, we circled the block for the fish. Now you can get it to go, but you can be back inside filling up the equipment bays, and it's a nice community event. Again, can't remind folks enough of this. Leicester Public Library is one of 15 public libraries across the country hosting the joint Smithsonian and American Library Association traveling exhibit, World on the Move, 250,000 Years of Human Migration. That's at Leicester Library from March 20th through April 23rd. Also some special speaker programs, as Tracy mentioned, in conjunction with this world-class exhibit coming right here to Two Rivers at Leicester Public Library. An update from the police department we shared on Facebook last week. Following his unfortunate encounter with a motor vehicle, K-9 Officer Zante has a clean bill of health, hasn't missed a beat. He is working with his new handler, Sergeant Jacob Schweigel, and thanks expressed to the community for its strong support of the K-9 program and the assistance provided by Memorial Drive Veterinary Clinic. So wish Zante and Officer Schweigel well in their partnership. Our water superintendent and water department, I joked to Andrew, they got a Valentine on Valentine's Day when the Wisconsin DNR gave its written approval to the water utility request to cease use of sodium hydroxide for corrosion control. This may not mean much to folks listening out there, but council will remember that in September of last year, the water utility, per DNR mandate, started feeding orthophosphate for corrosion control, basically to keep lead in any remaining lead services or pipes from leaching into the water. That's fine. There was a lot of preparation and study that went into implementing the orthophosphate feed. However, at that point in time, DNR was saying, well, we want you to still keep feeding your old corrosion control chemical. So 2 chemicals aiming to address the same issue. As Andrew can share, sodium hydroxide is nasty to deal with. It's expensive, and it resulted in frequent call-ins for staff because the rate of chemical feed not only had to vary based on the volume of water coming in, but the pH of the water, the relative acidity, alkalinity. That's what treatment with sodium hydroxide is all about, controlling pH to to preclude leaching of lead out of the pipes. The new chemical orthophosphate is not pH sensitive. It's based purely on volume. So the feed rate is proportionate to the amount of water coming into the plant. We anticipate being able to shed on the order of $48,000 in either overtime or comp time for call-in, $12,000 in chemical costs associated with that chemical. Orthophosphate isn't free, but the estimated cost is about $9,000 per year in chemicals. So we appreciate DNR's relative responsiveness on this. And Andrew, do you have anything to add on that? Or we thank you for the follow-up on it too, because I think we're all scratching our heads when we talked at Utilities Committee and at a council work session. Why would we be adding two chemicals for the same thing? So we did it for about 5 months. Kind of super duper map on it, but as you're aware, the legislature recently approved new legislative districts as proposed by the governor, figuring it was better than what the court might come up with, from what I understand. Governor Evers did sign that into law. There are some changes there. It does appear from a preliminary review like we will be in the same assembly district as Manitowoc, a district that will terminate just a little bit to our north, but will extend down to the northern portion of Sheboygan County. I can't tell you offhand what the implications are for the Senate district, but stay tuned on that and we'll get a better report out to you on that. But it changes the lay of the land, and we'll see what it ultimately means for who represents Two Rivers in both the Assembly and in the Senate.
Have we ever been in the same district with Manitowoc before?
If we have, it's been a long time. I can speak to the last 28 years we've been in separate
It
districts.
seems kind of strange seeing we're the two biggest communities within the county that
Yeah.
were junctioned together there.
There might be some good things because we have common interests. It hasn't been all bad at times to be able to talk both to our own rep, Shay Sortwell, but then kind of tap Paul Tittle on the shoulder and say, if you're so inclined, we could use your support on this as a neighbor. But
Yeah,
in a
you
lot
think
of
you-
ways, it seems to make sense too.
You think that way would almost make it better if we have common interests, that you can tap two people for the same good versus one person.
Yeah, there's something to be said for that.
Okay.
And that's all I have. Just a reminder, as Joe Metzen, our tourism director, would say, need any information on the community, and up-to-date and complete listing can be found at explore2rivers.com. And we thank Phil Rohr for this fantastic drone shot of the harbor entry and this downtown and central portion of Two Rivers. Phil, in his retirement, has really gotten into drone photography and dropped some great images by City Hall, which we appreciate. It's a beautiful place.
Great picture.
That's all.
Love it.
Thank you.
Awesome. On to number 10, consent agenda. Under A, presentation of minutes, we have one. It is a city council meeting of February 5th, 2024. Recommended action is a motion to waive reading and adopt the minutes. Under B, minutes of meetings, there are 7. The recommended action is a motion to receive and file. Under C, department reports for January of 2024, there are 11. The recommended action is a motion to receive and file. Under D, applications and petitions, we have 6. The first one is for a temporary Class B retailer's license for the Two Rivers Main Street Brian Lee Memorial Blues Fest, July 13th, 2024, from 1 p.m. to 10 p.m. in Central Park West at 1700 Washington Street. We also have a temporary Class B retailer's license for Two Rivers Main Street Cool City Classic Car Show and Cruise on June 29th, 2024, from 4 till 10 p.m. And again on June 30th, 2024, from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. at Central Park West, 1700 Washington Street. We also have a temporary Class B retailer's license for Two Rivers Main Street Ethnic Fest, September 21st, 2024, from 8 till 5 p.m. at Central Park West, 1700 Washington Street. We have another temporary Class B retailer's license for Two Rivers Main Street Great Trivia Contest on March 8th, 2024, from 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. at the Community House, 1710 West Park Street. And we also have a temporary Class B retailer's license for the Friends of the Two Rivers Snowfest for the Snowfest Cornhole Tournament on April 7th, 2024 at the Community House, 1710 West Park Street. And finally, a temporary Class B retailer's license for the Friends of Two Rivers Snowfest for the Snowfest event July 26th through the 28th of 2024 in the Shoto Park at 2111 Pierce Street. The recommended action is a motion to approve the applications and authorize issuance of the licenses. Under E, audit reports for tax incremental districts and the WEDC CDI grant. We have two. There is audits of the tax incremental districts 6, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12, each from date of creation through December 31st of 2022. The recommended action is a motion to receive and file. And the last one is an audit of the WEDC CDI grant per CDI contract FY 22-53218 for $250,000 grant that assisted with development of the Cool City Brewing Company for a period of April 12th, 2022 through December 31st, 2023. And second financial report for this grant now fully expended along with the required developer match. The recommended action is a motion to receive and file. And finally, under F, a recommendation from the Plan Commission meeting of February 12th, 2024. This is to set a public hearing on conditional use permit application by Hawk Battery Energy Storage System Project proposed for a parcel located in the I-2 zoning district at the Woodland Industrial Park. The parcel number is 053-233-404-010.01, located on the west side of Woodland Drive, approximately 1,000 feet north of State Highway 310. The recommended action is a motion to set that public hearing for Monday, March 4th, 2024 at 6 p.m. The recommended action for the consent agenda as a whole is a motion to approve the consent agenda with the various actions recommended. Looking for a motion on the consent agenda.
I'll make the motion.
Jeff, and second by Darla. Any council discussion? See none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, motion carries. On to 11, which are the city council formal items. Under A, we have a consider amendment to tax incremental financing property sale, cash grant, and developers performance agreement with the Confluence LLC to modify timetable for certain required actions and approvals. The project update, we will be updated by Kip Golden of CR Structures and the YBR Properties LLC. And I do see Kip here as well, but I'll let Greg give us a brief intro and then Kip will have the stage.
Yeah, and just to correct that agenda listing, actually, it's for the Confluence Development, the entity, the city's agreement with is YBR Properties LLC, as indicated in the materials provided. The original of this agreement dates back to December of 2022, so about 15 months ago. Tonight, the council is asked to consider an amendment that would move back some timetables, some deadlines within the project timetable as set forth in the agreement. It has been amended previously. I would note that there's still some pretty near-term deadlines that would exist. Notably, the council is being asked to allow until March 31st of this year, less than 6 weeks out, for finalizing the project cost breakdown and submittal of proof of project financing. That's a pretty significant step. Then project commencement deadline would be May 15, project completion December 1st, 2025. As noted in my cover memo, I do recommend, as does Community Development Director, these amendments. And Kip can talk about the progress that's being made on the project. If any further consideration of extensions is needed in the future, though, I would recommend that we're at a point where some earnest money on the site, which is being tied up pending this development, would be appropriate. Certainly along the way, there have been the interest rate issues that we heard about from Baird earlier tonight. There have been increased costs associated with the conditions encountered at the site. The project has grown from 50 units to 71, and the price tag from about 13 million to 20 million. So all things considered, there are a lot of moving parts here, but we need to be getting close to commencement of the project. So with that, Kip, feel free to step up to the mic and provide the update as planned.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to come and present this exciting project. And just brought some of the work that we have been doing. Right now, this is the soil boring report that we got done. So obviously you all know that or most of you probably know that we hit some concrete. The old foundation from the old plant was all just pushed in and buried. So there will be some additional costs. Right now, obviously, we don't know the extent of it until we actually dig into it. But it's pretty considerable on that end of it, which also made sense to not start the project in December and kind of push it to spring. I did bring along also the architectural plans, the civil plans, which I think the city has seen, and then also all the structural plans. So all the plans for the project are complete. We're ready to rock and roll. We're gonna have 6 weeks here to get our the financing in place, and then we'll be ready to rock in May. I do have a rendering that I don't know if anybody's kind of seen what the building's gonna be looking like, but I can certainly leave that here with you guys. And just here to really answer any questions.
And the project has been through site and architectural review
Correct.
at the Plan Commission.
Yeah, so
reflecting that
the
design.
only thing we have to do as far as approval wise is sending this to state, which, take a couple weeks, or maybe a month. And then we'll be able to pull a building permit and move forward.
So as far as the financing, you're not complete on that. That's kind of what the extension here is for.
Correct, to get us to the end of March here.
Okay. And do you see that as a feasible timetable?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Investors are all in line as well?
Correct. Yep, investors, equity. It's just a matter of picking the
Getting
bank that we want
the
to go
bank.
with in closing.
Okay. And that seems pretty favorable?
It does. It's tough. It's
Yep.
been tough. I mean,
Yep.
that's what we've been working on for the longest time. I mean, these plans are dated last fall. So, but yes, we finally got through it. The big thing is the interest rates haven't come down at all on our side, but they've certainly leveled off. So we know what that is. We just had to bring more equity to the table. So it took us a little bit more time to raise that equity. And now we're ready to kind of rock and roll. We just got to finalize it and get it done.
Could you speak to the equity component of the required financing? Because you're looking at, it may change, but about a $20 million total investment now.
Yeah, $20 million total investment, and we, even with the additional equity that you guys are helping out with, which is huge, we're still having to put in basically double what we were thinking we would have last fall. So because of the increased cost, and then obviously the interest rates with where that does with your debt coverage ratio, it's always about the debt coverage ratio that on these projects, and that debt coverage ratio is making us bring additional equity, which again is fine. It's just a matter of having to raise that money to and get everybody to put more money in to get the project moving forward, which we're there.
Did that increase or change your investors? Increase the number of investors?
No,
or
they
change-
just all had to put more money in.
Okay, okay.
The deal is a little different, but again, the deal in 3 years, we can refinance at that point. Hopefully interest rates are better. The market's better. It's more of a long-term play and then maybe a short-term play, as far as making money off of it, I guess.
Anybody else have questions for Kip while he's up? Yes, Bonnie.
Could you remind me, why did you go from the 50 some units to 70?
Just economics, because of the cost of the
For
construction.
you?
Right, the cost of construction because of if I go up a few more floors, it doesn't cost me as much it helps the cash flow side of it. So we're making a little bit more income and it's not costing me as much money to build those extra couple floors.
Anybody else? Bill?
Do you see any problems with the states have to bring all this to the state?
No, actually they've really sped that up. They've actually hired, I don't know if they've hired more people but it's down to 3 to 4 weeks to get your state approval. And I think we go through something different here. I don't think it goes to the state, does it?
I'm not sure on the scale. Elizabeth, do you
Does it
know?
go through
offhand?
E-plans or something? Okay, yeah.
So we
So
should be
it
able
might
to
even
do
be
that
quicker
review.
than that.
Yeah.
So it just depends. Every municipality is a little different. I couldn't remember exactly what we did here. But no, I don't anticipate any problems there.
Council does have a markup of the original development agreement. you've approved a couple generations of changes to it, but I chose to mark up what was the original agreement. The one other change, just to highlight, and it was in my staff memo, the original agreement, because the developable portion of the site, you start with 3.5 acres of Edgar site. The city built a retention pond. We're retained, no pun intended. We're keeping that. The balance of the site is intended to be ultimately
Phase 2.
a location for 2 buildings. Phase 1 would be purchased, and then there'd be an option to purchase the balance of the site, or phase 2. The original agreement, that was 3 years out from the date of signing, which was December 2022, I believe, of 2022. So 3 years forward from that would be late 2025, and heck, the phase 1 building will just be getting done then. So I did in there propose taking that out another year to December, end of December of 2026. So just full disclosure, that's
And
identified.
the goal there would be, once we get this one up, get this one all occupied or to a certain percentage, then we can start working on the other one. And there is a mirror image of this, and they both fit on that property. Or both properties, I guess.
With parking too?
What's that?
With parking too, because I know
No, we'll
that
have
was
to
a
worry- We'll
discussion.
have to work on a secondary, probably across the street.
Okay.
Something on that nature.
Okay.
At that time.
Because I know that was,
Yeah, we won't have enough parking.
right, because when we met, I think it was at Plan Commission, we had talked about parking and the need for extra, and possibly the lot that the city will be owning here, I think, what, September-ish?
We're scheduled to close in September on the storage building and adjacent parking lot owned by J. Strew.
Any other questions for Kip? Go ahead, Jeff.
I don't remember in our first conversations with us early on, when or if the second building happens, was there TIF money going to be going through that also, or was there not?
That is outside the TIF. Now, his TIF could put a grant that way, but it's not within the district.
It's,
At this time.
yeah, it's in the district right now, but
It's in
the
the
intent
district, but
is
it's
once
not
the
captured.
extent of the phase 1 development site is determined, the balance, or the so-called phase 2 site, the intent is certainly to come back to council and amend that district and take it out. So there were no promises made about any TIF assistance other than for phase 1. And just for folks that are viewing at home, that anticipates a $900,000 upfront grant where the city would borrow the money and make a developer grant. That would, the debt service on that borrowing would also have first priority on any monies coming from the TIF district. Then there would be a $900,000 pay-as-you-go grant, which only gets paid to the developer if first there's enough money for the city to pay its debt service on the $900,000 granted up front. And then there is an incentive for meeting certain timelines with development, an incentive packet, or excuse me, an incentive payment, which I want to say is up to 400. Sorry, I should know that. Performance incentive equal to 50% of annual tax increment revenue received and attributable by project in excess of what we showed in the pro forma. And that was maxed at $450,000. But the district has to be creating the revenue to make that performance payment.
Right.
And it isn't coming out of the general taxpayer's pocket.
So then I misspoke, because I thought we had separated those two. One in the TIF,
Yeah.
one outside the
We
TIF.
really couldn't until the line was drawn dividing the two.
Okay,
But the intent was to identify that to council and consider action then to remove the second site through a boundary amendment and take it out of the TIF.
Okay, so those two lots are not split as of now.
No, they are not. The pond site is split off, the so-called development site, which is anticipated to, I don't remember if we called it phase 1 and phase 2, but you know what I'm talking about, to be 2 pads is entirely within, it's one parcel right now and it's entirely within the district.
So they're gonna buy that whole property, and after which we're gonna divide them?
Now, what we anticipated here is they identify what's needed for the phase 1 site. They buy the phase 1 site. The city retains the phase 2 site. Now, if it's got parking on it, that's probably going to be subject to a lease agreement. But then the city would have the ability to amend out the second development
Okay,
pad.
gotcha,
There, right now, that's one parcel.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought it was 2. My bad.
Like I said, there's a lot of moving parts.
Yep.
Documented, but moving.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Questions only for Kip? We do not have a motion on the table. All right, thank you very much. Looking for a motion to accept the amendment as presented.
I will make that motion.
Thank you, Scott, seconded by
Second.
Tracy. Now, any council discussion? Bonnie?
Okay, I'm gonna vote yes, but I was tempted to vote no. Because this was taking so long, but you're pretty convincing. Give you another chance.
Bonnie, I'm not too far off from you. And I respect Mr. Golden. I think he's done a good job. I think it's going to be a good project. It does get a little frustrating with the length of time, but I understand we're not talking about $100,000 here. We're talking about 20 million. That's a big deal. But there are some people eager about it. There are some people talking about it, and yeah. So hopefully we get this thing rolling. Scott?
Yeah, same thing. It was kind of doom and gloom the last time you were here. It seemed that way. It was like, oh, it's not going to happen, et cetera, et cetera. But now with this information that you come back with, a lot more confident that it's going to move forward. So I'm very pleased with that. And also with the picture that Greg has up there, wouldn't that be nice to see those 2 buildings there?
Absolutely. If you want to put it on your prospectus or anything you want it for. Yep. I think Phil Rohr would even go along with that because he made that available to the city. Sure.
Anybody else? See none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
I,
Anyone opposed? Jeff, all right, so that passes 7-1 with Jeff being a no.
Yeah, and understand, based on that action, the city clerk and I will then be proceeding after the city attorney takes a look at my revisions to execute an amended agreement. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Kip.
All right, on to B, recommendation from the Plan Commission meeting of February 12th, 2024. Recommended provisions to be included in a possible amendment to the city's sign ordinance, Title 10, Chapter 4 of the Municipal Code, pertaining to placement of signs advertising private businesses on public sidewalks in business district. Matter referred back to the Plan Commission by City Council at its December 18th, 2023 meeting, following the Plan Commission's recommendation that such amendment not be adopted. The recommended action following council review of the proposed provisions either are one of the 3. Refer back to the Plan Commission with any modifications directed by the council to be reviewed, put in final ordinance form, and returned to the City Council for final action. Or direct staff to prepare an ordinance amendment reflecting any modifications directed by the City Council to be brought back for council action at the next regular meeting. Or provide initial feedback, then table pending a survey of downtown area businesses by the 2 Rivers Main Street office, directed by Main Street Board at its February 14th, 2024 meeting. So any further background on that before we look for a motion?
I think you can see from the Plan Commission minutes, which were in the council packet, that there was pretty extensive discussion devoted to this at Plan Commission on the 12th, last week, Monday. And I would just leave it to council. I would recommend ultimately tabling this for that feedback through the survey that Main Street is undertaking and that went out with Jason Ring's newsletter to all the business district property owners this afternoon. But if council members have anything that you have questions or real concerns about in the Plan Commission's recommendations, this would be a good time to at least initially hear those.
You know what? Let's do it this way. Let's not do a motion. Let's bring this as discussion. Just because there's multiple ways we can go about it. So let's bring it to discussion as to what we want to do with this before we end up making a motion, so we don't have to make several of them. Okay, so we can discuss as a council on this without a motion because we got multiple ways that we can kind of do this one up. So anyone want to start? Bonnie, you might have had your hand up. Go ahead, Bonnie.
Originally, I thought this was a pilot program. The Plan Commission came up with a lot of regulations, I guess you could call it. I don't see why we can't vote for it And then in a year, if you want to take your survey and ask people, because how can they know if they don't see what it's like? I mean, that's my opinion.
Anybody else? Jeff?
I'm kind of with Bonnie on this one, and I don't like the numbers, how they had it, that you can only have one in front of your business. There really would be nothing wrong with 3, beginning, end, center. With that, otherwise, I don't think we really need to obstruct, their advertising. It's no more annoying than the signs or the flags that are hanging, slapping you in the face when you go by on a windy day. They're clean and they're not slippery. They're probably less of a trip hazard, even if they were to curl a corner on them, than what the stamped concrete is. So I don't know what the big issue is. We seem to be putting an awful lot of time into this.
Anybody else? Tracy?
I don't even see on here where one of the alternatives is a pilot program, and who would put together the pilot program and implement it?
It is a pilot program. That's what it came back
Yeah,
as.
I don't think that was reflected in the notes.
But
per
that's what
se,
it was talked about
These-
as.
Oh, I know it was talked about.
Okay.
I was, okay, I was.
But it was talked
suggested
about
it.
like that
But,
at the last plan commission meeting as well. So I don't know how it did make the minutes, but it was reflected that way.
Well, I guess then let me put it this way. My question is, who is going to draft the pilot program and make sure it's implemented and brought to us so that we can vote on it and fine tune it then?
That would be city staff, so that'd be Greg Elizabeth's office, maybe Matt Heckenlibel's office, along with our city attorney. Who
It would either be,
overlook at it.
And
Very much
I've
need him.
been thinking about this a little bit. It's either a big honkin' amendment to the zoning code for the pilot program, or something gets introduced into the sign ordinance saying that pilot programs can be of, say, I'm pulling this out of the air, but of 12 months or less in duration can be enacted by resolution of the council, which would be a whole lot simpler if possible, as opposed to embedding all of this in the code and then taking it back out if the pilot doesn't work out.
Yeah, but because a public hearing is required, there should be some description of what the potential pilot program would be, rather than adopting a resolution after the public hearing.
Right.
Setting forth the terms of a pilot program.
But I think the plan commission's parameters recommended here would apply whether it's a pilot program or whether the council wanted to make it a permanent new ordinance.
More?
Second,
Yep.
one more
Mhm. Yep.
question.
Yep.
Actually, this is for Mr. Bruce. If they put these on, regardless of on the sidewalks, the public, does the city have any liability at all?
It should not have any liability for adoption of an ordinance, but we have to be mindful of the fact that these stickers or decals, I'm not sure what to call them, are being placed on the public right of way. And therefore, we have to be more careful with respect to setting forth the requirements and making it clear that the city has no liability as a result. That would probably require, I would recommend as prudent, some sort of requirement to the effect that those placing the signs on the public right of way would agree to indemnify and hold the city harmless from any kind of damage claims made, because there's no way we can control who's going to sue whom.
I know that.
So I think we'd want a built-in protection for that fact, regardless of the fact that I think we have some protection just by virtue of the fact that it's legislative in nature. Excuse me.
Anybody else? Darla, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate, in all fairness, it would be nice to wait until we get the poll results back and just see, because the thing is, if there's really no interest, that might kind of, that's gonna maybe change our opinions or, kind of color them. So I'd like to wait until this would probably be back 2 weeks from now? Do you think?
I
Well,
don't
we
know.
need 2 weeks' notice before
'Cause
the
it's gotta be
public hearing can be held. It's probably more than 2 weeks.
Right, I think Darla, we're used to speaking to any results of the survey Main Street's doing.
Oh,
So
Yeah,
the council could give further direction.
Right, I just told him that to really stress with the business owners to get the results back quick. And, so that we can look them over and before we have it back up in front of us at our next, council meeting. It would be the next regular one, I would assume, right?
In March.
Okay.
Anybody else? I'm personally, I think I'm more with Bonnie as well. I do respect Main Street and what they have to offer, but I don't know that they have to, because even if it is just one business and it's one business that we can help out, or if it's two or three, I think we should be proactive and try it on a trial basis. I would go back to the front yard gardens and the fact that we've helped one or two, but we continue on with it, right? Because there's a possibility of helping more once they see it, once they get a hold of it. Because right now we're kind of, people are making assumptions and basing an opinion on something that we haven't tried, that we don't know. So there might be people with feelings of, hey, we want nothing to do with this, based on pretty much no information of what they may look like, what they may do, how slippery they are. I go back to, I think Weikert's had them out there for probably 2 years. And I did ask that question upon city staff if we had any complaints, of which there were none. I mean, I think with all that businesses do and the great job that a lot of them have done in taking care of their buildings downtown, if we can help them out in any way of putting something like this, albeit a trial period, we should try to go with it. We don't put everything in front of Main Street for a vote. I mean, I don't think when they went up there, when they upped the bid district number, I don't know if they took a poll with everyone within the Main Street to see if that's something they should do. Nor do I think we need to do that with this, although it would be nice to see that feedback. I'm not saying that we don't want the feedback. It wouldn't be good to get it. I don't think it would weigh on my decision though. Personally, it wouldn't. Just because, again, not everyone has experience with them and may have just ill will towards it. Just because maybe. My opinion. Clearly. Tracy.
So, as long as we're going with that, whether it's one business or two, I mean, I think the feedback is good. I'm big on as much data as possible. However, with a pilot program, can we include something like that those that do put the decal out, that they somehow monitor how many people come in because of them? Because long-term, it may tell you whether or not you personally want to have your business, doing that. I mean, if you want to bang for your buck, that may not be the best way. I mean, it depends on what it is. And we're talking about, promoting our businesses, particularly in the downtown area, but throughout, to folks who are coming here for festivals or whatever, vacations. I got over the winter months, and in the fall, I met all kinds of people because I do hang out downtown a lot. And met all kinds of folks who came in here just even for a long weekend looking for something to do. And I think we got to figure out how we can promote that to our hotels and whatever else, so that they know, you know what, I really like this town. I think I want to take a look at what kind of housing you have available. And this way they can go through something and say, you know what, look at these realtors. Why, my God, they're right around the corner from the hotel, and draw them in. I think that would push.
It might be hard feedback to get. I mean, I think they can certainly try, but I think on
Yeah, you can ask.
busy days
You
to
walk,
ask.
somebody walks in your business, how'd you hear about us? Everybody does that.
Oh, right, but if you're a bar on a busy night or a restaurant that has one out in front or a Quick Trip or something like that, you're not gonna ask everyone
Oh, no, no,
if
no.
they saw that. I mean, it
I'm
would be.
just asking them for their
Oh, right,
details.
but there may be other people that may be
Oh.
taking part of the program. Or it could be an ethnic fest where where downtown's flooded and people coming in and out, or Schrader's, or you name it, where they're not gonna get to everybody to say, hey, how did you hear about us?
Oh, no, it's not gonna be totally
No.
accurate. It's gonna be
Yeah.
anecdotal. Yeah.
But I would say it's gotta be somewhat successful, because you see them at Six Flags and you see them in Las Vegas, and those people wouldn't be doing it if there wasn't some success to it, I wouldn't think.
Well, I might have some concern legally with respect to an ordinance or any kind of legislative act by the city requiring
Getting
people to
feedback.
ask questions
Okay.
of people who enter their businesses.
Yeah, I guess I agree entirely with Jack. I took Tracy's feedback more to be, if you want to be able to make a good business argument for keeping the ordinance after a trial period, that would be good information. But as far as making it a condition of a license or a permit, I don't know that that was being suggested.
Well,
The other thing, if,
yeah.
I guess I'd say if the council ends up referring, you could refer this forward without necessarily tabling it. It wouldn't probably break the city attorney's heart if we had 4 weeks instead of 2 to work on an ordinance, or if it goes back to plan commission. I'm not looking to bury it, but either one of those actions would give time for Main Street's feedback to merge without stopping the whole world.
I would appreciate at least some feedback regarding what provisions should be included, say among those that the plan commission or that was brought up at the plan commission, and what should not, because, well, it'd make it easier to draft it.
I mean, and I'm not going to make any secret, I don't recommend this. A majority of the plan commissions still don't recommend it. I would recommend, and this is partly in light of Mr. Gordon's comments, the plan commission is giving you a recommendation, 1 per business per frontage. I understand there are different opinions on that, but if the same, I don't know how real estate firms are structured, but if you got 10 realtors and the potential for 10 signs, I understand in some beauty salons or spas, people rent their chairs. They probably view themselves as individual businesses. All of a sudden, in theory, you could have a real proliferation, and that was a concern. Is this about informing people, or is it about, and this is public right of way, and I'm sorry if folks think it's a little stodgy to make that distinction, but it is public right of way the city has responsibility for, and has invested a lot in streetscape and things to make it look clean and orderly. I'd make a very strong argument for the plan commission's recommendation, 1 per business, and define that business as, I don't know, the tenant for the real estate, because I assume there aren't 10 separate leases at Whitekert. It's Whitekert's building, so you don't have a lease. And kudos, by the way, it's a beautiful building. You guys have done a great job. But I'd encourage council to, if you do a trial, I think the plan commission is giving you some great guidelines for a trial basis. And,
I would agree with that, as much as I'd like to see more of them, and I've made that argument at Plan Commission. I think at Plan Commission, we did a lot of give and take to kind of get us down to the ordinance in which, or the recommendation in which we have. And it was a very long meeting, and we took a lot of time on this. Again, there was a lot of give and take from people that were for and against to kind of narrow it down to this. And I think this is at least a good spot to start. And if we enact the ordinance, a year from now after the trial, we can always make those adjustments and say, hey, you know what? It actually turned out better than we thought. Maybe it is 2 or 3 signs, or maybe we're not doing this, or maybe this is how we kind of reshape it. So we have to start somewhere. And I think starting small for something that nobody else has is probably the right step to do. But I think it's something that we should do.
I'm really glad that Plan Commission has come up with some ideas to what they would like as guidelines. I think that's a real meeting of the minds and cooperation, and that's the way this should be. I just want to say that for something like this, it is if it is going to benefit a business, even the most remote possibility, I think it is something that's worthy. And I'm quite happy with what Plan Commission's come back with. I think it's better than I expected, quite frankly.
I think it's just something that hopefully we can move with, get it back to Jack to take his 4 weeks and really draft this thing through. And that's not being facetious to Jack. That's, we need to take our time. He's got other things he's working on as well. And he wants to probably take his time to make sure that he dots every I, crosses every T to make sure that this ordinance is going to do it for the businesses and for the city as a whole. Jeff?
Arnold, what were all of the questions on the survey?
I didn't go out to, we decided we would keep it fairly simple, but then, what do you think that they're a good thing? Pretty much yes and no. Would you use them? Yes or no? But one thing that was included too were the recommendations from Plan Commission. So we didn't want to overcomplicate it for them. It's like either you love them or you hate them.
Right.
So we just wanted to see what the business owners thought about it because, I think maybe a lot of them would like it. Oh, you went to the link. Okay, perfect.
Yeah, what she said,
Right on
it's,
here.
yes, I support it. No, I don't support it. Other question and comments.
So, yeah,
Good, simple, and to the point.
Basically, I can't see that any much negative.
Next, the next guy, 0.
well, there are a couple that are adamantly against it for their own reasons.
I
mean,
didn't say
it's
0, but it would be,
interesting.
I'm thinking it would be pretty slim.
Yeah, but it's pretty interesting, as a experiment, what's going to come back and we'll report on that.
And there's businesses within the B1, B2 that are outside the Main Street district too, that are not going to get their voice represented within that survey. So just to take solely from what Main Street says with businesses that are not necessarily on Main Street, but reflect in that district, wouldn't be fair to them either.
We should probably just let them know that this is, that they can add their voice to it. Not that, even if they're not in the bid district, I mean, we want to hear from as many people as possible.
You can put, just put a link on,
All right.
And maybe TRBA could pick up on it and share it with its membership if Main Street's okay with their database being tainted, if you will, by,
no.
by additional business areas. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt there.
So, I mean, out of this personally, I would like to have a motion come out of here, following number 2 to direct staff to prepare an ordinance amendment reflecting any modifications directed by city council to be brought back before city council for action, not at the next regular meeting. Because Jack's gonna take his time on that. So, I mean, he's about 4 weeks out already.
And this wouldn't start until.
Yeah, I was going to say,
Anyways.
if you want to have a draft you can work with in 2 weeks, I think I'd be able to come up with a rough draft in light of the fact that you have to give notice.
Right, because you have to have a public hearing, which is another thing that.
What I come up with may not reflect the council's desires, or the council might have problems with it. And then it would be necessary probably to put off any public hearing, because you want the public hearing to address as closely as possible the provisions of the ordinance itself, so you don't have to hold another public hearing. If during the public hearing or discussion of the council afterwards, it's decided that there should be substantial modifications to the ordinance. That's why it's important to get your feedback. I'm saying I could maybe come up with something with some sort of direction, and that would give you at least a working draft for future consideration.
So more of a draft in 2 weeks for us to look over.
That probably is realistic.
Okay. Okay, and then after that draft, you'd have a full ordinance that we would vote on before we'd get a public hearing off of that.
Right.
And then vote on the full.
Modifications to the draft, come up with a more finished draft consistent with the council's direction, and then the council would be able to schedule a public hearing.
Okay.
That's my suggestion, anyhow.
So I will make a motion to direct staff to prepare an ordinance amendment reflecting any modifications directed by the city council and include the recommendations by the plan commission, because that will give you something to go off of. Right? To be brought back to council action at the next regular meeting
Draft form.
in draft form. Is that fair? That work?
Yeah, for council discussion.
Discussion.
and Consideration.
So I'll second that.
Okay, second by Jeff, so I got a mic that's not on. Thanks. Oh, there we go. All right, so I got a motion by Scott, a second by Jeff. Council discussion.
Past part of the limit the time period. They should be allowed to have your
I had no problem really with that, but I know that the Public Works Committee and Director were concerned with winter. So as a in-between again, we came up with some dates.
I think Darla talked to the person that they got the signs from. And he said it'd be very difficult to reapply the sign. So they basically have to throw their sign away.
It's pretty much one and done, but the thing is, that I talked about earlier, is these ANSI ratings. I think that some of the reservations might not, I don't want to say wrong, Matt, but I think that we should look at them so that we know what kind of material we're dealing with. And like I said, they use these types of decals for the NBA. I don't see those guys going skidding across the floor. You know, there's so many different things that we should consider.
I agree. I have no problem keeping them on 365.
Right.
I think the Public Works Director's concern didn't relate to a climate-controlled environment like the NBA or a casino or something. It was more frost maybe forming at a different rate where you've got that surface compared to the surrounding sidewalk. He'd be happy to speak to it if the council wishes to hear those concerns. I guess
We can have Matt address those concerns. I mean, we'll take a vote on that after.
But, you know, the responsibilities to property.
People, right?
So the city is not gonna have any liability.
right.
We'll give Matt the opportunity to at least speak on that.
I did various reviews of websites, product inventory from different manufacturers. And one thing I did notice is there is no consistent or standard material type out there. And additionally, with at least 4 different manufacturers, there's no consistent skid resistant requirement out there. Each different supplier had a different ANSI, utilizing different requirements that were international, European in nature, that have since been voided. So there is no consistent across the board rating system. A lot of the specifications that were found on the websites were on how to test, but didn't come up with different requirements as to it must meet this standard. So stating that it meets a ANSI or ASTM standard may or may not be applicable. One of the standards referenced was to the slipperiness of ceramic tile, which has nothing to do with the actual stickers. So again, that was part of my concern, is there is no consistency across the board because nobody has taken ownership of it on a national basis. And yes, my big concern is when these vinyl stickers do get cool on a moist evening, frost does generate, and they are slipperier than the surrounding concrete out there. Now, are they as slippery as the tree grates? tree grates. The handicap ramps may be slipperier. The handicap ramps are required under federal law. I have no say in that. And the tree grates are outside the normal walking path. So if somebody opts to walk out there, I'm gonna say it's walk at your own risk. The stickers that we're talking about right now are in the primary walking path, and therefore is my concern for the public general health and safety.
I made that argument at Plan Commission as well, because I do believe those tree grates are slippery, and yes, they're outside the walking path, but I would argue it's not necessarily always unavoidable. As if you're a passenger and you're parking on the street, sometimes that is your course. Not everybody can just hop, skip, and jump over it. Again, I'll go back to the day at Subway that I text Greg on in summer when a elderly lady with a cane almost fell face forward off that tree grate because it was heaved. There was no way she was avoiding stepping on that tree grate to get out of the car. It was either that or she was staying in the car. Are they in the normal walk path? No, they're not, but they're not necessarily avoidable to walk on either. Darla.
I was just gonna say that where you're doing your research is way different than what I'm getting. So I respectfully have to disagree with some of what you're saying. I think that there's some value in it, but there's also some value in what I've found. So I think that it's important, and it's either it's slippery or it's not. I understand your argument about the moisture and it gets cold and all this, but these ratings, there's indoor and there's outdoor. And they're taking into consideration the part of the country. Everybody knows that Wisconsin gets snow. And that's all I'm going to say about it. I mean, I think these are just decals, people. I mean, this is getting really ridiculous. But I think that we should just be as educated as possible as to what is out there. And as far as I know, neither the Van Ginkels or Weichert had a slip and fall. So we're making this way more difficult than it should be. We spent a lot of time on it. So if anybody wants more information on the ratings for slip, contact me. I will get you what I've got. Same probably with Matt.
Okay.
You would need a motion to amend what's on the floor if you wish to strip out the requirement that
We
they
would
be
have to get
seasonally
we'd
removed.
have to get that from Scott and then again from Jeff. Jeff, go ahead.
And one thing I'd like to add too, you guys there's two different manufacturers that have them, correct? You guys didn't use the same manufacturer. Okay, and I don't. Right.
Okay, so
So I mean, we can
from the
start-
audience, for everybody else, Weichert, Mark Gordon has said that he used Lucky Signs and Mr. Van Ginkel may have used somebody else. Just answer Jeff's question because they can't hear.
Doesn't mean the universe is two manufacturers, but there are at least two. There's probably a lot
Right,
more
I
than
mean,
that.
we have a couple examples in the city already. And with no issues over, well, I guess collectively 3 year winters, if you add them all. But yeah, I'll amend that if Scott's ready to.
Scott would have to go first.
Yes, I will amend my motion to take out the prohibited time to allow it for year round.
I'll second that.
Okay, so Scott and Jeff both seconded or made the motion to change to allow the date for year round versus there was two different dates in Plan Commission's notes, I believe.
December 1 to March 15th.
One followed the parking ban and one was a little bit more restrictive than the
Right.
parking ban, I
I think
believe.
the recommendation tied to the parking ban was kind of a minority
Right,
report to make it
yes.
longer
Yes,
because of the Public Works Director's direct observations
Yes.
as he reported them to the Plan Commission and as he reported them to you tonight.
okay. So with that said, any further discussion? See none, roll call vote, Amanda.
Tim Petrie, Donnie Shimalunas,
Aye.
Scott Steckmeister,
Aye.
Adam Husky,
Aye.
Jeff Delkey, Tracy Coach, Bill Leclerc,
Aye.
Darla Leclerc,
Aye.
Tim Petrie.
All right, motion carries. Thank you very much. Good discussion. Oh, no, we skipped C because we did C. On to D, which is professional services agreement with McMahon Associates for services related to updating the city's stormwater management plan and related programs and ordinances. Costs not to exceed $90,044, funded half from the Wisconsin DNR Urban Nonprofit Stormwater Management Planning Grant and half from the Stormwater Utility, which is a 2024 budgeted project. Recommended action is a motion to authorize the city manager to execute the contract on behalf of the city as recommended by the Public Works Director / City Engineer and the City Council Utilities Committee. Greg.
Pretty much self-explanatory. Budgeted item, with the passage of over 10 years now that we've had a stormwater permit and have enacted some measures, the TMDL study, the new modeling for the rivers, to need to know where we need to go moving forward for continued compliance. This makes sense. And again, anticipated in the budget, and as was anticipated, half of it, $45,022, will be funded from the non-point grant, as noted.
Okay, looking for a motion on this. Thank you, Bill. Seconded by Bonnie. Any council discussion? Bonnie.
I do. Who's gonna clean these ponds? Not them, right?
No.
I was looking through this and they're doing a lot of talking, but nobody's gonna clean them because there's gonna be a time when we have to empty them a little
Right.
bit, don't
No,
we?
this is an engineering study and modeling, so they aren't going to do any maintenance work on the ponds for the city. That has been addressed, and there will come a point, and actually there's been some quantitative and qualitative testing of some of the sediment in the ponds. That's ultimately the city's responsibility, not out of this study, but you're right, as an expense of the stormwater utility. And what we've heard, at least if we still have winters in Wisconsin where it freezes, that may be up for debate this year. What we understand is typically the ponds would be drained or pumped down, the sediments allowed to freeze and then removed. But I don't think we're really too close to that right now, actually, are we?
Typically, it's upon life.
From the Public Works Director, about a 20-year life. We're probably 14 years at most into the life of some of our ponds, 13 or 14. Because the first batch of them were funded in part with some of the counter-cyclical dollars in the 08 to 2010 recession. So, yeah.
Have we done any testing to see how much is down there? How much sludge, and maybe not sludge is the right
Matt,
term, but
come on down.
how much?
Yeah, sorry.
Being relatively new at the city, I don't have a specific answer as to whether or not we have taken any type of soundings or elevations of the bottom of the oldest ponds. I know we had done some water sampling going in and out as far as how much sediment and phosphorus was in the water. That was done about 4 or 5 years ago. But to the best of my knowledge, no formal study has been completed as to where we sit with the pond accumulation of sediments.
Did those tests show that the ponds are working?
Mixed results. Some of the water samples, and I don't know the conditions as to whether or not it was prior to a rain event, after a rain event. So it just provides a bunch of unsubstantiated data.
Snapshot in time.
Yep.
Darla.
I was just going to say that when we first started the Environmental Advisory Board back up, we started back up because of this issue. And one of the things that, it took a couple of months, but one of the things that was done is we did have somebody go out there and do some soundings. And right now, from what they found, it's right on track with the modeling. There wasn't much. And going by that, in 20 years' time, I don't see an accumulation being huge. So we might even be able to get away with more than that 20 years before we have to. You have to take them as is. I mean, we have an idea as to how often they might be, but we might be able to squeak out a couple more years. So,
That was kind of my question, to see if we were gonna have to do it in the near future, if we would.
The other aspect is construction activity that is in and around these ponds. So the one at Sandy Bay Highlands actually might be one of our first ones to need any significant maintenance activity because of new construction, sediment runoff, and things of that nature. Some of the infill ponds off of Hawthorne and Columbus, those, because it was already a developed drainage basin, may not see as quick accumulation of sediments. So those may be extended beyond that 20-year life.
And Jeff?
Darla, you're right, because when I was on the EAB early on, and some of those ponds that they had tested, I mean, they weren't even close. They weren't even in the 20-year spectrum yet. So
right,
it depended where they were. And
Right.
like you said, it was construction based too.
right. And it was those 4 original ones from '09.
Yeah.
That's what they were looking at.
Yep.
And it'll be interesting to see what happens with the Sandy Bay. That's been kind of a bloody experience so far.
Yeah.
So,
Actually,
okay.
yeah, the analyticals were in October of 2020, and they did, I'm just looking at it on the phone here, obviously, there was some pretty detailed analytics on the sediment, and there was also data as to the inches of accumulation in each of the ponds at that point in time. So probably with a deep dive back into this data, we could provide some better answers for what started with Bonnie's question up here. But we're a good ways out, maybe with the exception of the Sandy Bay Pond. And I'm not sure that was the subject of the McMahon sampling work either. Yeah.
Okay, any other questions? Tracy?
Yeah, I have a couple. I'm just curious, man. I suppose I could ask you afterwards. But were there assumptions with this? Well, just, meet with the city, provide guidance and technical expertise,
I gave a bullet point of the whole proposal and the application for the grant. So the work that McMahon is proposing would mirror the application that was submitted on our behalf.
Okay, anything else? All right, see none. This is we'll do a roll call vote. Amanda?
Bonnie Shimalunas,
Aye.
Scott Steckmeister. Adam Mahusky. Jeff Delkey.
Aye.
Tracy Coach.
Aye.
Bill Leclerc.
Aye.
Darla Leclerc. Tim Petrie.
All right, motion carries on that. On to E, consider rescheduling February work session. City manager is unable to attend on Monday, February 26th. The recommended action, motion to reschedule February's work session to Thursday, February 29th at 6 p.m. Pretty self-explanatory. I don't think he needs any backup on that one. Anyone wish to make a motion to accept that or to propose an alternate date?
I'll make a motion to accept it.
Thank you, Bonnie. Seconded by
I'll
Jeff.
second that.
Council discussion. Yes.
Is there real need for that work session, or could we just skip that one because we got a meeting 4 days later?
Yeah, we do. I'm thinking there are probably enough items that we could be discussing.
I'm
Yeah.
curious.
Anything else? All right, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. On
Possibility on that.
on
Appreciate
to 12 for information only.
Just a reminder that you've got your next regular meeting 2 weeks from tonight on March 4. We talked about the work session in between. That agenda will include, by way of example, not limitation, you've got some big stuff coming up. The public hearing on the Roosevelt Avenue special assessments, the public hearing on the proposed conditional use permit for the Tenaska battery energy storage system. Again, if you get questions from constituents or you have some of your own, I would refer you to those plan commission minutes because that was about an hour and a half discussion with a lot of staff work that led to the 20 conditions that are identified there. So that's a big deal. And there will be assuming you approve special assessing it, there will be the award of bid for the Roosevelt Avenue reconstruction. And just to preface that, I would note the bids came in favorable on that, slightly below engineer's cost estimate. And look forward to presenting that for action. That's our big infrastructure project of the year and long overdue.
Yes,
So-
that's an important one too.
Yep. That's all I've got.
All right, looking for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Jeff. Seconded by Darla. Any council discussion? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you and good night. Do you have anything for anyone to sign? Resolutions?